go ahead and call the meeting to order and then start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, let's call this meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. Please rise with me and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America,
the Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So the first item on our agenda is a motion on the agenda. Do I have a motion on the floor to adopt the agenda?
so moved.
Second.
Chip has moved the agenda.
Okay, Chip, is there a second?
I'll second.
Brian?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. So I am pleased to move on to the second item on the agenda, the oath of office, and turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, CEO Shad, and welcome everyone. Thank you everyone who's joining us for this first ever virtual State of the City and swearing in ceremony. We would now like to ask the 8 counselors who were just elected to raise their right hands and repeat after me the oath of office. Under pains and penalty of perjury. I state your name.
I, Ali Jane,
Carpenter.
Solemnly swear and affirm
solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of City Council
that I will
I will
faithfully
faithfully
execute the duty of the office of City
City
Council
Council.
to the best of my judgment
to the
The
best
best of my
judgment.
judgment.
and ability according to law.
And
Ability
according
according to law.
Congratulations to you all.
Thank you. Yeah.
So CEO Shad, I'm going to go straight into the address.
Yes, please do. That was somewhat awkward, but congratulations, new counselors. It's very exciting, and I'm thrilled that we can welcome you aboard via this remote technology. It was wonderful to see you all take that oath. And I'm pleased to turn it over to you, Mayor, for the state of the city.
Thank you, CEO Shad. We need just one more second here with all the technology in the room.
We can do it like that, so when Dad talks, we can see him. Yeah, you can see everything. Press that. Whoa. Yes. Mm. She's not supposed to be talking. Oh, Daddy. Okay, okay. I'll be back. So you're sitting. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, figuring out how to do the microphone. I think. Oh. I need a minute to show you what you're doing, but you can do this. You should. I'm sorry.
All right. Okay, we're gonna get started. Good evening, residents of Burlington City Councilors. We meet tonight remotely at a time of disruption and uncertainty with little precedent in our members. Our city and the globe are under deadly assault from a foe, the COVID-19 virus that we cannot see and still do not fully understand. Our schools are closed and our college campuses are quiet. The Church Street Marketplace, the hub of daily Burlington life for nearly 40 years, is empty, and only businesses essential for sustaining life remain open. Our residents are under order from the governor to stay home and advised to cover their faces for safety when on the street pursuing essential tasks. We look out our windows and see sprouting lily bulbs, robins, and neighbors on bikes. But these signs do not carry the sense of renewal and life of the typical spring. In the last 90 days, we have lost at least 9 Burlingtonians, and dozens more are battling the virus as I speak. Those of us who have older parents fear for them, communicate with them through closed glass windows and online cameras, and wonder how long it will be before we can embrace them once again. Just behind this crisis of health, there also looms the crisis of economic disruption. Thousands of Burlingtonians have lost their jobs in recent weeks as massive sectors of the economy have ground to a halt. Renter or owner, employee or employer, all fear for the future of our homes, jobs, and businesses. In short, the state of the city is a state of emergency. It is an emergency that is likely to last in some form for many months and then threatens us all, regardless of class, race, or age. And it is an emergency in which we each have a role to perform to save as many of our neighbors as possible and to ensure that the Burlington of tomorrow is a city that emerges with renewed and even increased strength and vitality. This is my 9th State of the City address. An annual speech is required of the mayor by the city charter. Tonight's though, in many ways, unique in many ways. My entire address will be about the COVID-19 emergency and how we will get through it. Throughout this emergency, I attempted to communicate daily with details and facts about the local response to COVID-19. In this address tonight, I plan to speak at a higher level to 4 key pieces of the road ahead. First, I'll outline my thoughts in the context of our current moment. Second, I'll speak to the challenges I believe we may face for the next 12 to 18 months. Third, I will summarize how we have reshaped city government over the last month and the steps we have and will take to ensure that we get through this crisis. And fourth, I will share a vision for how Burlington can emerge as an even better, stronger, and more just community. I'll begin with our current moment. Tonight, we believe we are approaching the crest of the public health emergency. The state is projecting that this crisis will peak sometime this month. Yesterday, the country's Surgeon General warned that, quote, "This is going to be the hardest and saddest week of most Americans' lives." Here in Burlington, we know that the number of deaths is very likely to rise. We wish great strength to the dozens of our neighbors who are currently battling infections and to their families and loved ones. And yet at the same time, it's clear today that thanks to the commitment and effort of the overwhelming majority of Burlington citizens and Chittenden County residents, we are succeeding in flattening the curve. Barring an unlikely change of events, we are on course to stay well within the capacity of our healthcare system, which has been our paramount goal since this emergency began. Even amid the tragedy that our current moment holds, we should also recognize that together we have achieved a significant accomplishment that was by no means assured 1 month ago. Where do we go as a community from here. The future still remains very uncertain. However, the major outlines of the months ahead are beginning to take shape. We are all hungry to start thinking about what lies ahead and to begin planning for it. I'm going to do my best to level with you tonight about what is before us, despite the risk that some of what I may say may turn out to be wrong. Good outcomes in the months ahead will require both continued urgent government planning and action, and for all of us to understand and commit now to still more sacrifice and cooperation.
We're having a bit of a technical difficulty, so I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to pause while I try to resolve it.
Yeah, that's what people are.
They can hear me.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Public health experts expect that there will be three major stages responding to this pandemic. Stage one is our current stage, the stay home stage, where slowing the spread of the virus can only be achieved through extreme physical distancing measures. We will probably need to stay in this posture until two big things happen. One, the state reports sustained reduction in cases for approximately 2 weeks. And two, we dramatically expand our capacity to battle the virus.
There's a bad echo. Olivia, is that better now? Okay. I think the echo should be resolved. It's good now.
Do you want to reverse it? Sorry. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep going here. During this period, we must use time to our advantage. We have a lot of work to do quickly to expand our capacities to detect and test for COVID-19, to contact trace, to safely and supportively isolate individuals who test positive, and to ensure our healthcare system has everything it needs to sustain high levels of COVID-19 care. Burlington will continue to work closely with the governor's team in the weeks ahead to ensure that state and local government is collectively ready when conditions allow us to move to the next phase. If we remain committed to social distancing and the current trends reported by the Department of Health continue, hopefully we will drive down new cases to levels we need sometime in the next 1 to 2 months to move to the next stage. The better we each do our part, the less transmission there will be, and the sooner we can start reopening parts of society and the economy. Stage 2 of our COVID-19 response will involve a planned, phased, and strategic reopening of society, even as the threat of the virus remains. Vulnerable facilities, like nursing homes, will need to remain restricted and highly vigilant during this period. With each new sector of society that reopens, we will need to watch carefully for new infections and work very hard to contain them when they do occur. During stage 2, as we live with the threat of the virus, we will need to continue hand washing, avoiding touching our faces, capturing coughs and sneezes, cleaning surfaces frequently, and the other strategies that have become such a large part of our lives over the last month. Face masks also will be an important part of slowing the virus in the months ahead. I'll speak more to that in a minute. If virus spread within the community again becomes uncontrolled during phase 2, we may need to reimpose some or all of the stage 1 restrictions until the virus is suppressed once again. Here's the hard reality. Public health experts believe that stage 2 will probably last for 12 to 18 months.
Stage 3 will essentially be going back to our lives before coronavirus. And we are unlikely to be able to get to there until a vaccine has been developed and most people can be immunized. Perhaps we will get relief sooner. Many viruses do not do well in the summer heat, and it is possible that innovative medical treatments or even a vaccine could become available more quickly. While we can reasonably hope for better, we should plan and prepare ourselves for a long, challenging fight. Throughout stages 1 and 2, concerns about the virus will impact our economy significantly. It is important to recognize, however, that successful social distancing, hygiene, and virus fighting strategies are not only our best public health tools. Until we develop a vaccine or therapies, they also represent our only path for reestablishing the widespread public confidence in leaving our homes that is necessary to truly restart the economy. This vision of the next year or more and its financial implications are daunting. Though the challenge is great, we will work our way through these questions with the same resourcefulness, commitment, and compassion that earlier generations brought to their defining moments. During World War II, Winston Churchill told his country, amidst the dark chapters of the war, that the future is unknowable, but the past should give us hope. What hope can we derive from history for our current moment? We can see that the influenza of 1918 to 1919 was devastating. Though it was devastating, the world survived it and ultimately thrived again. In our recent history, we can see communities returning with resilience after being physically devastated by natural disasters, from Hurricane Irene to Superstorm Sandy. In this case, it should give us confidence to know that we will emerge from the storm with our buildings standing and our infrastructure intact. Looking just weeks into the past, we see multiple countries in Asia that are already well into stage 2, having mobilized a massive virus fighting effort while reopening, or in some cases, never closing, much of their society. Locally, we should take considerable hope from our actions over the last month to successfully flatten the curve. We have accomplished this to date by acting together. This virus makes clear to us that we must all work collectively for the common good, that the steps we take to protect ourselves also support our neighbors and ensure that we only are as strong as our community. I have seen this spirit in Burlington in countless ways in recent weeks. I saw it when I visited one of the 11 sites around Burlington where the Burlington School Food Project has been distributing free breakfasts and lunches to anyone under age 18 since schools were closed by the virus. The BSFP, as it's known, has done this work in collaboration with partners, including our own Burlington Parks, Recreation, and Waterfront Department. And I want to say thanks to you, Doug Davis, who's joined us tonight and who has led the Burlington School Food Project for years with great skill and compassion, and to thank this entire team. Thank you, Doug. I saw it too when I was at the city's North Beach campground on the night that more than 24 people experiencing homelessness got keys to individual campers to stay in. This group had been staying at the low barrier shelter that we launched downtown 6 years ago, but there isn't enough room at that facility for the social distance that is necessary right now. So the city, the state's Department of Children and Families, and the organization A New Place came together, and now this vulnerable group in our community is in a safer place, and we are all safer too as a result. I want to particularly recognize Heather Bush, who has joined us from A New Place, for her tireless work in this effort, first setting up the shelter this past fall under A New Place's leadership for the first time, and then leading the logistics and huge effort to move the facility to North Beach a couple weeks ago. Thank you, Heather. I know there are many more heroes like Doug and Heather, and many more efforts like these two. These heroes are also every nurse who has been caring for patients at the University of Vermont Medical Center, every teacher who is adapting lessons to teach online, and every person who has put stuffed bears in their windows to make their neighbors smile. I know, too, that there will be many more Burlington heroes in the weeks and months ahead. Next, I will speak to the work that city government has done and will continue to do in order to ensure that we get through this disaster. Since we first began preparing for the arrival of the virus in February, we have been guided by the evidence that in global pandemics, local actions matter. Let me say that again. We have been guided since February by the evidence that in global pandemics, local actions matter. As a result, we have dramatically reorganized city government to respond to this challenge. On March 13th, we activated our Emergency Operations Center, and that center now manages the decisions and actions that are related to this crisis. I want to thank our Fire Chief and Emergency Services Director, Chief Stephen Locke, for his outstanding skill, commitment, and leadership through these first key weeks. And on March 23rd, 2 weeks ago, we created the virtual COVID-19 Resource and Recovery Center, or RRC, to provide relief to all Burlingtonians who need it during this crisis. We've repurposed much of our Community and Economic Development Organization team, as well as parts of the Burlington Electric Department and other city departments to staff the RRC. And in their new roles, this team is working to connect residents with resources, provide one-on-one consultation and support, analyze what big packages of federal legislation mean for Burlingtonians, and much more. Already, this team has responded to more than 200 individual requests for help, created 10 different program areas, and launched new programs like the Burlington Food Relief Pilot Program, which is a separate food program just started on Friday from the one I spoke a moment ago about. Elsewhere, too, our city team is gamely and with great flexibility and heart, taking on new assignments and functions. We also have repurposed the time of 10 city employees across 5 departments with research, epidemiology, and policy skills to form a city analytics team in order to analyze a large volume of information about COVID-19, identify best practices, and use their insights to inform our emergency decision-making. On other fronts, our cultural team of Burlington City Arts, the Fletcher Free Library, is creating new online programming to support our community in this time of isolation and stress, and to help us spark creativity and imagination from our kitchen tables. Our Department of Public Works is focused on the essential emergency work of keeping our water and sewer plants secure and functioning through this emergency, and transforming many streets into additional open space for social distancing to take place, and so much more. With all this going on, and with staying connected more and informed more important than ever, we have had for the last 2 weeks daily briefings, and we're going to continue to do that going forward as long as the pace of change and effort continues. Among the many efforts the city is pursuing, there are 3 major initiatives underway that I want to discuss here with you today. The first is an initiative to supply masks to members of our community. Nearly 3 weeks ago, the city anticipated that masking strategies would be important and started working urgently to see how we might be able to produce masks here locally, given the global shortage of high-quality masks. At the end of last week, the federal government and state announced new guidance encouraging everyone to wear masks outside the home. By the time these announcements occurred, we had already had conversations with regional medical partners, sourced 1,400 yards of thick fabric we call bull denim, using the emergency allocation the city council approved the last time we met, and in partnership with the local store Rags to Riches and the Lyric Theater Company and Milton Artist Guild, we had helped create a prototype mask and begun getting masks into production with additional partners, including outstanding community sewists, Vermont Teddy Bear, and Queen City Dry Goods. And I did bring one of the prototype masks if you haven't seen it yet. Over the weekend, we started distributing the first run of these high quality masks to essential workers throughout the city, not just city workers, but also essential workers who need them at organizations ranging from Hannaford's to Feeding Chittenden. I'm now announcing 2 new goals with this masking effort. First, we will work to provide these Burlington community masks to all of the essential workers who want them as soon as possible. If your organization is open, if it's doing essential work here in Burlington and you want masks for your workers, please email the RRC at recovery@burlingtonvt.gov. Next, we're going to continue to work with partners to scale our production to create tens of thousands of masks by May 1st, so that every Burlington resident who wants one can have a high quality mask when we move to stage 2 and start reopening parts of the city. The second major city initiative I want to speak to tonight is part of our COVID-19 Resource and Recovery Center, or again, the RRC. A key function of the RRC is to work with Burlingtonians to help our residents access the relief resources available to them as quickly as possible. I want to give you an example of what I mean by speaking directly to the thousands of people within our community who have lost their job or worried they soon will, and have no idea how they will pay for their rent or mortgage, groceries or healthcare, or other essential needs in the months ahead. I want you all to know that the city has been fighting for you throughout this crisis, and we are going to keep fighting for you. From the beginning of this, I made clear that no one should lose their home during a public health crisis. It requires people to stay home. Last week, thankfully, Superior Court Judge Helen Torr took unprecedented action to essentially stop all evictions and foreclosures in Chittenden County for 90 days. I also testified to state legislators on this issue, and they are moving forward with a bill to solidify these protections quickly. Now, still speaking to those of you with questions about the future, I know that these actions alone don't address the questions of how you will pay your rent, mortgage, or other bills. What we do know is this: massive help is on its way from the federal government, and the RRC is here to make sure that all Burlingtonians get any assistance they need to access that aid through web resources, adding capacity at the Department of Labor, who we're working very closely with, and if necessary, through detailed one-to-one consultations. Some of that aid is going to take time to get here, and that leads to the third major city initiative that I'll discuss here tonight, which is all about giving city property taxpayers and the residential and commercial tenants who live in Burlington properties months of additional time to get help and figure out a personal path forward. Already, before tonight, the city has suspended many fees and penalties, a summary of which can be found on the city website. Tonight, the administration is taking the rare step of asking the city council to take action on Organization Day in order to add to this relief and to give our property taxpayers and residential and commercial tenants in their properties more time to respond to the COVID-19 crisis without additional costs. We have put in front of the council tonight a $20 million plan to allow all property taxpayers who need it 2 additional months to make their June quarterly property tax payment without incurring penalties or interests. With our credit rating strong and the cost of borrowing currently very low, we can take this unprecedented action to support our residents and workers at minimal cost and with limited financial risk. In order to undertake these and other major initiatives and to otherwise mount the emergency response this crisis demands, and to recognize the new financial realities the city itself is facing, the city will need to focus, sacrifice, and to prioritize. For example, we are anticipating a revenue shortfall of $5 million, about 25% of our expected revenues in the fourth quarter of this fiscal year alone, and even larger losses in fiscal year 21. I want to be direct about what this means. As a result of this financial impact and focus on the COVID-19 emergency, we will need to delay or perhaps even let go of some of the city goals that we had prior to this crisis. By the end of April, we intend to bring a first phase of a COVID-19 emergency city financial plan to the City Council in order to outline in more detail the city's financial position and what we will need to do to get through this crisis as a city. Even as we will have to make sacrifices, though, we will not compromise on or defer core Burlington values. One of these core values is inclusion and belonging. Today happens to be the very first day on the job for the city's first ever director of racial equity, inclusion, and belonging, Taisha Green. And Taisha is with us. Welcome, Taisha. Taisha recently has relocated to Burlington from Minneapolis and brings with her passion for developing racial equity programs for municipalities. With Taisha's arrival, we have created new capacity in the city to break down the barriers of institutional racism and implicit bias. Taisha, welcome. I am excited to advance this critical work with you. It was great to have Taisha on our department head call this morning at 8:30. Thank you, Taisha. Another core value that Burlington continue to lead the way in responding to our other declared crisis, our climate emergency. To the greatest degree possible, we will pursue solutions that address both emergencies in the months ahead. To that end, tonight, I'm glad to announce a Burlington Green Stimulus Package that will help support both our economic recovery from this pandemic and our transition to becoming a net zero energy city. Working through our outstanding municipal electric utility, Burlington Electric Department, we will redirect hundreds of thousands of dollars in existing efficiency funds to support a range of expanded, accelerated, or new programs, including initiatives to help lower bills for renters and low to moderate income households, boost incentives to help put local contractors and businesses back to work, and support weatherization and heat pump installation as soon as the virus conditions allow. Increase EV incentives, create a limited time cash for residential appliances program to incentivize a switch to efficient appliances, and assist with the cost of replacing commercial heating or cooling systems that fail in the months ahead. At our daily briefing tomorrow, we will release details of this green stimulus package. Both of these examples lead me to the final topic that I want to speak to you about tonight. A vision for how Burlington can emerge from this crisis as an even better, stronger, and more just community. While crises hold tragedy, loss, and hardship, they can also be times of transformation. In being forced to remake so much of our reality to respond to this pandemic, we've also had the opportunity to remake parts of our future. I believe that we can find some lasting good in our response to COVID-19. Here are a few examples of what I mean by that. First, we should build on the success of creating a low barrier site at the North Beach campground that is open air and emerge from this crisis taking better care of those in our community who are experiencing homelessness. We must be a community where all people can find shelter when they need it year round. Second, during this crisis, we are expanding our work to translate essential materials into languages other than English. In addition, before the end of this week, CETO and the RRC will be announcing details of a new Trusted Community Voices program to help share and disseminate important information across our city to people who speak different languages. This essential work of access and inclusion must continue beyond this crisis. Third, so far in this crisis, we have used technology in new ways to track constituent requests, issue city permits, and expand public accessibility to public meetings, like we're doing just right now. To use these tools, and we're getting smoother at each meeting, to use these tools and this broader spirit of innovation that should continue beyond the end of the COVID-19 emergency. Fourth, through this emergency, I've seen a spirit of appreciation for each other and for our public employees that I have been heartened by. This moment of collective coming together has been an uplifting one, and has been uplifting of our public dialogue and a reminder of the value of expertise and competence in government. Even while the Trump administration remains in the White House, I hope that we can hold on to this change in our civic discussion at the local level and appreciation for the public employees who serve our city and state. I want to close with gratitude. After I conclude this speech, we will be moving into the City Council meeting, and I am grateful for our City Council. Your partnership, your challenges, your ideas, and throughout the deliberative and democratic process you engage in makes our policy better. Together, the 12 of you and the administration will, I know, head forward into these uncertain waters and find ways to guide Burlington's ship to shore. I also want to congratulate again the 3 new city councilors who were just sworn in for the first time: Sarah Carpenter, Jane Stromberg, and Zariah Hightower. I particularly want to congratulate Councilor Hightower on her accomplishment of being the first woman of color ever elected to this body. I look forward to working with you for the betterment of the city. I'm grateful too for the 3 city councilors whose service in that role concluded tonight. Councilor Adam Roof, I'll miss your distinctive perspective and thoughtful arguments. To long-serving city councilor and local House representative and departing president of the city council, Kurt Wright, I am grateful for our evolution from campaign opponents to trusted friends and colleagues, and I look forward to continuing to talk at least once a month when I join your radio show. And finally, Councilor Sharon Busher, in your 34 years of service to the city, you distinguish yourself as the longest serving city councilor in Burlington history and someone who has shaped this city in so many ways. Along the way, you did that by sitting through many evenings here in City Hall. Today, I am pleased to announce that in recognition of your long service and devotion to Burlington, we are hereby renaming City Hall Conference Room 12 with the much improved title of the Busher Conference Room. I'm deeply grateful for our city's outstanding team and department heads. Your skill, leadership, and deep care is a key piece of what makes our city work. In this crisis, more than ever, I've been so appreciative of having you all by my side or on the Zoom screen together, like we were at 8:30 this morning, as we think creatively and simply work hard for the people of Burlington. I'm also grateful that even amidst this crisis, signs of hope and continuation of the rest of our lives still persist. Here's one of these examples. When I gave this address back in 2017, I shared the story of a woman named Alicia Sherman, who had come to a town hall meeting we'd held that year on the opioid epidemic and shared her experience with addiction and recovery. She had begun her journey as a competitive athlete, taking prescribed pain medication, and at one point landed in a hospital bed with a serious infection for 90 days. And from there, was able to break her opioid use disorder and rebuild her life. I heard from Alicia recently that on March 27th, during this storm of COVID-19, Alicia and her husband, Seth, welcomed their daughter, Ariel, to the world. Congratulations to all 3 of you. Stories like yours remind us all of the life and hope that exists even amid this pandemic. Thank you, Alicia, Seth, and Ariel, for joining us tonight and being with us. It was great to see the 3 of you. I'm grateful that here on Zoom tonight, we have also been joined by Mary Jane Kane. Mary Jane and her former Burlington mayor, Frank Kane, attended my first 7 State of the City addresses. Last year was the first one that they missed, shortly after Mayor Kane passed away. Tonight, we welcome Mary Jane and also remember Frank, and are so appreciative of the service that you both have given our community. I think we're going to have Mary Jane with us here on the screen in a moment. And as we get her here, I just want to say, Mary Jane, I have thought of you and your family and your generation every day throughout this emergency, as we have worked so hard to contain this virus. I don't think we're going to be able to get Mary Jane on the screen, but she is with us, and we did speak to her earlier tonight. I'm grateful for my family, Mom and Dad, who I think are with us. Thank you, as they've been with us every other State of the City address. Thank you for all of your guidance. This is not my mom, but this is Mary Jane King. Mary Jane, thank you for figuring out how to make these crazy technologies work and joining us tonight. We'll talk to you again soon, Mary Jane. Thank you to you and your whole family. Mom and Dad, thank you for all your guidance, encouragement, and love over the years. I look forward to being physically close again. I have some serious hugs for you. And Stacy, Leland, and Ada. I see Ada hiding down there. You are everything to me. I am so fortunate to have a life partner like you, Stacy, and thank you for your unwavering support, wise counsel, and boundless love. And Leland and Ada, thank you for being such wonderful daughters. Being your dad is the best experience. And Ada, I am sure the Tooth Fairy already has heard that you lost your first tooth earlier this evening. And we don't think the Tooth Fairy is in quarantine with this virus. Finally, and above all, I'm grateful for our Burlington community. This crisis has already reshaped so much of what was familiar to us just a month ago. One thing, though, hasn't changed. Burlington continues to be a place where we show up. We leave chalk messages of greeting on the sidewalk for our neighbors walking by, where we volunteer to deliver meals to the front doors of seniors, and where, quite simply, we look out for each other. I know that we will get through these weeks and months ahead the same way we've gotten through the past year, together. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. The next thing on our agenda is public forum. Do we have anybody signed up for public forum? Gordon
Catherine,
or Amy?
give me one moment while I turn to the public forum part of my computer.
That's okay. I planned some jokes in case this happened. Just kidding. I didn't.
So counselors, I turned you off for the State of the City, but I think you'll be able to turn your webcam back on. Let me know if you have trouble doing that, and I might have to do it from my end.
We cannot do it. It says you can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
Okay, then I will adjust that momentarily. Okay, we have 2 people signed up for public forum. If folks are interested in speaking on the public forum, they can fill out the form that is posted to board docs. The first person that we have speaking on public forum is Michael Nadell. Michael, you're gonna have 3 minutes. I'm going to hold up a timer here, and I'm going to, let's see here. Michael, can you hear us?
I can.
There you go. We can hear you. So just give me one moment to get the timer started, and then
Sure.
you can, you'll be all set to go.
Awesome. Thank you. I just want to thank everyone for what they're doing to deal with this crisis. The only thing I need to talk about is the bike bump outs on Peru Street now that I am home, working from home, and I got to walk my dog a couple times a day. The bike bump outs on Peru Street have been kind of in disrepair for a better part of a year. I think they've been on C-Click Fix, been covered with graffiti. The white barricades are all fallen over. Some are lying in the flower pots. Some are kind of on the ground, and it's been reported for a while now. So I just wanted to see if there was some sort of action that could be taken. The graffiti seems to they're a center for graffiti, and that seems to have sparked some sort of more graffiti in the area. So I know they're a temporary solution to the traffic calming measure, and maybe they can be removed or changed one day. But right now, they're just covered with graffiti and in complete disrepair. And I want to really thank everyone for everything they're doing. Thank you.
So the next person we have on public forum is Charlie Messing. And I know Charlie had some technical difficulties the last time. And Charlie, I'm having a hard time finding your line as part of the Zoom meeting. Let's see here.
Me and Charlie, the little crackpots. me and Charlie.
Charlie, I'm having some difficulty finding you on the Zoom. If you want to try and chat or raise your hand or do something so I can find you in the attendees section. I am having some difficulty finding you, Charlie, and I'm sorry. I'm trying to identify you. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, Charlie. I will send you an email directly for the next city council meeting. I'm sorry it didn't work this time. And I will send you better instructions next time to try and get it to work. Give me one more moment, Catherine, so I can get the counselors' videos up.
Sure.
Just one more moment.
Oh no, I can't tell you.
So counselors, if you're in a place with background noise, it might be useful if you just mute your microphone until you're planning to talk so that we minimize the background noise. Okay, I think that should be everybody.
All right. So we are going to close public comment and move on to item 4 of the agenda, the election of the city council president. I will open the floor to nominations.
Thank you. It took me a minute just to get my bearings straight here. This is Councilor Brian Pine, Ward 3, and I am honored to nominate Max Tracey for City Council President. And after a second, I'd like the floor back to say a few words.
Okay. Any seconds for that nomination? Seconded by James. Brian, you can have the floor back.
Okay. I just wanted to share with the rest of the council and the public that the role of council president is sometimes viewed as one of Speaker of the House of the General Assembly or the House of Representatives. It's quite different here at the local level. Council president is really intended, I believe, to bring the whole council together and to work with the administration on governing our city in the most democratic, transparent, and effective manner possible. And really, when it comes down to it, on many issues, there is more that unites those of us on the council than divide us. And I believe councilors approach their jobs with a desire to find common ground while staying true to their beliefs and their principles. And there are times when we can't find common ground. And when we do that, we should strive always to remain firmly rooted in our principles and vote our conscience, but do so in a respectful way. I see the role of council president as setting the tone for the council and how we interact with one another, with the administration, and with the public. And Max shared with us, several of us, that he views the role of council president as providing advocacy for and support to other councilors so they can leverage their skills effectively while also serving as a bridge between the council and the administration. So I support Max because I believe that he shares our goals to work effectively as a council, respecting each other, respecting the public, and working collaboratively with the administration. I know he'll do this in a way that will bring us together and will help us enhance our democracy in a really inclusive and transparent way. And I urge the rest of the council to support Max for this.
Is there further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, are we ready for a vote? Do we need to do a roll call or can we just do a voice vote?
That depends on whether it's unanimous or not.
Thanks, Eileen. Okay, so all those in favor of Councilor Tracey serving as City Councilor President, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Congratulations, President Tracey.
All right.
And now with pleasure, I hand the meeting over to you.
Thank you very much, CAO Shad. I very much appreciate you managing the meeting and all that you're doing to help with the city navigate these challenging financial times for our city. This is a tremendous honor to take this role, and an honor that comes with responsibility, and a lot of it. Responsibility that is certainly heightened by this particular moment. And I take this role incredibly seriously. That seriousness comes from having served on this council and developed not only a respect for each and every person who sits at this table, but also the folks who work for this city, the administration, and Burlingtonians in general. And I also have a tremendous sense of respect for the City Council as an institution. This institution is crucial as in connecting our constituents with the services that they need, and that in many cases they are now so desperate for. I see this council as being crucial to continuing to serve as that bridge between the public and city government. Each one of you as city councilors here at the table got here because of the connections that you have, because of the skills that you have, because of the talent that you have. And I have been incredibly impressed to see all of you leveraging those talents in response to this particularly challenging moment in which we find ourselves. I think we will be called upon time and time again to continue to leverage those skills as we look to respond to this crisis. And I will look to each of you to continue to offer that service and to facilitate you in the great work that all of you are doing on this council. Making sure that I'm doing as much to welcome the new councilors, and I certainly want to congratulate city councilors Carpenter, Hightower, and Stromberg, who are new to the council at this particular meeting, and congratulate them on their wins. Want to congratulate the returning councilors as well, and thank those who have served and who have left the council, those being Councilor Busher, Councilor Wright, and Councilor Roof. So I just want to thank each of you for all of your service. I see each of us as needing to come together in this particular moment to collaborate. And we've seen that collaboration take place in so many ways over the last several weeks. I look forward to that continuing. I look forward to continued work between this council and the administration in addressing this crisis, making sure that we, as councilors, are bringing our concerns to the administration and to each other, and working collaboratively to find solutions to those issues that so many in Burlington are facing, making sure that we use this council effectively. I think that in addition to that, we also need to recognize that this city council is a really important forum for folks to have their voices heard in this particular moment. And I want to make sure that we do everything that we can to allow for and to help the public to have their voices heard. It's one of the great joys of being on council is, in my mind, getting to hear the public forum every week. And I think that we will need to continue to find ways to involve the public in the work that we're doing as counselors, to expand the outreach and find new ways to reach constituents, making sure that we are as inclusive as possible moving forward. This is not a role that I take lightly, and not a role that I know any of you who serve on this council or who are new to this council are coming at it with. So I very much appreciate the opportunity to serve as your council president. I will continue to work with you on this, and I will look forward to your feedback and assistance as I continue to grow in this role and serve you as counselors and work with the administration to, in this particular moment, respond as effectively as possible to the crisis that we face. That then moves us into our next item, which will be the selection of the Board of Finance, which involves 3 members. For those who are members of the public, if you don't know, the Board of Finance is composed of 5 members: the mayor, the city council president, and then 3 members from the city council. Are there any nominations for city council Board of Finance? Councilor Hightower.
I would like to nominate Karen Paul, Councilor for Ward 6. I haven't had the pleasure of knowing Karen as long as other on the council, but in the time I have known her, I've been impressed by her aptitude, her ability to reach across the aisle, and to put in the hours to get the work done. I really look forward to working with her, and I'm proud to nominate Counselor Paul for the Board of Finance.
Okay, so we are going to vote on each of the individual seats individually. So are there any nominations, additional nominations for this particular seat? Seeing none, we will go to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, that is unanimous. Congratulations, Counselor Paul.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we will
Thank you.
move.
Thank you, Counselor Hightower.
We will move on to the second seat on the Board of Finance. Are there any nominations for that? Counselor Shannon.
Thank you, President Tracey. Gonna have to get used to saying that now. I would like to nominate Counselor Pine to the Board of Finance. Counselor Pine is currently serving on the Board of Finance, and I think he's really highly respected by everyone on the council for his even temperament and knowledge of the city. And he has particular expertise in affordable housing, which has been his entire career. And I appreciate all that he has brought to the Board of Finance in the past year, and look forward to having him continue in that role.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for this particular seat? Seeing none, we will go to a vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Welcome to the Board of Finance, Counselor Pine. Okay, that leaves the last seat on the Board of Finance. Are there any nominations for that? Counselor Hanson.
Thank you, Council President Tracey. I would like to nominate Counselor Jang to the Board of Finance. I think Counselor Jang will bring a unique perspective and valuable perspective to the Board of Finance as the only representative from the North District, as the only person of color on the Board of Finance, the only new American, as well as the only independent on the Board of Finance. I think he has a lot to offer in terms of that. Additionally, I think Counselor Jang has shown himself to really not shy away from asking tough questions and really zooming out and seeing the big picture and bringing a clear sense of values into issues. Oftentimes when we maybe get caught up in the weeds or in the details, Counselor Jang has a strong ability to bring us back out and focus on the values and what we're trying to deliver for the community. So I'm happy to nominate Counselor Jang.
Thank you, Counselor Hanson. Are there any other nominations for this seat on the Board of Finance? Seeing none, we will go to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Counselor Shannon is opposed. Counselor Jang is elected to the Board of Finance on a vote of 11-1.
You need a roll call vote?
Yes.
Yes, we do need to have a roll call vote, given that is how open meeting law works. So would the clerk's office please call the roll?
Counselor Paul,
Yes.
Counselor Mason,
Yes.
Counselor Shannon,
No.
Counselor Jang,
Yes.
Counselor Pine,
Yes.
Counselor Hanson,
Yes.
Counselor Polino,
Yes.
Counselor Freeman,
Yes.
Counselor Stromberg,
Yes.
Counselor Carpenter,
Yes.
Counselor Hightower,
Yes.
Council President Tracey.
Yes.
11 ayes, 1 nay.
Okay, so that passes on an 11-1. We now have our Board of Finance. Congratulations to the counselors who will be returning and the new Counselor Jang, who will be joining the Board of Finance. Thank you so much for your willingness to serve on this board. It is usually usually on organization day, the city council does not do business. It's mostly a ceremonial day, but these are not usual times, and so we find ourselves taking up business on this particular day, and we have a resolution on a series of resolutions on the table that we will now move into. So I will look to Councilor Paul for a motion on item 6.01, please.
Thank you, President Tracey. I'd like to move the resolution, waive the reading, ask for a second, please, and then request the floor, so to speak, back after a second.
The resolution has been moved and is seconded by Councilor Shannon. You may have the floor, Councilor Paul.
Great, thank you very much. So as President Tracey has already stated, normally this evening is one for celebration, and normally it's one for when we all give warm congratulations. We honor the hard work and perseverance of those who are sitting at this table, and particularly those who are new to this table, Councilors Carpenter, Stromberg, and Hightower. Normally, this is our shortest meeting of the year, and we are quick to get out of Contois and go somewhere and celebrate in person, and just have a good time. Normally, as President Tracey has said, we don't engage in business this evening. And the reason we don't do that is because rarely is there anything that's really that important that it can't wait until the next meeting. I think we would all agree that these times are anything but normal. And to say that we're living in times that are really unparalleled by in any of our lifetimes would be no understatement. I think we would all agree that it is our job, the responsibility of city government, our responsibility to provide for our citizens and our community in our hour of greatest need. And this is one of those hours. On March 23rd, 2020, at our last council meeting, we passed a resolution unanimously that requested that the Chief Administrative Officer report to the council at the latest by April 13th. And I'm happy, and I know we all are happy to know that we're doing this evening in advance of the resolution, because time really is of the essence, to come up with a plan to meet the following goals: to allow taxpayers who are significantly impacted by this emergency to postpone their June 12th municipal tax payment to August 12th without penalty and interest, to explore this if the same can be done for the education portion of the payment, to explore the possibility of allowing taxpayers a longer-term payment plan in cases of severe hardship, and to link any property tax relief to a requirement that a taxpayer pass that relief through to tenants who are also impacted, and actually arguably even greater, who bear an even greater impact. The resolution before us this evening addresses these requests and I think it's important to understand that it's really the first step in moving us to addressing the adverse financial strains that many in our community are feeling due to COVID. June 12th, as we know, is the next date that Burlington property taxes are due. We know that there are many that are feeling the financial impacts of COVID, and those impacts are real, and they're seemingly insurmountable to many in our community. People who have lost their jobs, been laid off, have lost a significant portion of their income due to the economic consequences of COVID. Under our city charter, we are able to make adjustments to property tax payments regarding extending the deadline for taxpayers to make their June payment. The mayor and the CAO have recommended in this resolution that the council waive penalties and interest on the June payment for 2 months, using but not limited to the following criteria. These are the people who we hope will reach out to us and allow us as a community to help them. The taxpayer may apply for a waiver of penalties and interest if they have become unemployed, furloughed, or have lost 30% or more of their gross income since March 1st, 2020 because of COVID. The taxpayer's income is 80% of the area median income, which equates to approximately $75,000. Or the taxpayer is the owner or operator of a business and can demonstrate significant financial impact from COVID-19. And by significant financial impact, we consider that to be 30% or more of a loss in gross revenue since March 1st. The list of criteria was proposed by the administration, and there was a good deal of collaboration from the council to arrive at finalizing these criteria. The idea was that we wanted to construct a criteria in such a way to make it very possible for anyone who is impacted, anyone who's struggling to make ends meet, to be able to apply for this waiver. Of course, we also know that there are taxpayers in Burlington who are able to pay their taxes on time, and we greatly appreciate their timely payment. It will help us tremendously in meeting our financial needs. There are 3 points that I just wanted to highlight in the resolution. The first is, how are we going to pay for the fact that on June 12th, we must pay the school district their portion of the property tax. That amount is $18.8 million. Part of this will come from the usual source, meaning taxes that are paid on time. The remaining part will come from the proposed up to $20 million in tax anticipation notes, which we will vote on following this resolution. Tax anticipation notes, for those who are not familiar, are a highly effective, commonly used, low-interest borrowing instrument. As the mayor noted in his remarks, fortunately, if there is one fortunately, this event is happening at a time when the city's financial stability is strong. And the result, and this is the result of a responsible assigned balance, a prudent amount of budgeting, and smart choices that have been made by the administration and prior councils together. The second point is that I think while we all know that this waiver will be helpful to taxpayers, I think we all are aware that this is by no means the end of the road for the assistance that we are going to have to provide taxpayers so that they can effectively catch up on their tax payments. The city cannot be lenders to taxpayers, so we are unable at this time to offer a payment plan and be able to use tax anticipation notes as our financing tool. This point has been made by a number of counselors, and I think that there's unanimity among all of us that we need to find solutions prior to August 12th, the sooner the better, to ease the financial burden that many of our neighbors are experiencing. And then regarding the third point, we know that many in our community who are struggling the most during this crisis are renters. Those who do not directly pay property taxes, but need our support, our voice, and our strength during this challenging time. While there may be limits to what we can legally do to assist tenants who are struggling, the resolution before us speaks as boldly as we can to our commitment to doing all we can to help renters. This is why, in addition, to be eligible to receive tax relief, if a taxpayer has tenants on their property or in their property, the taxpayer must sign a statement, quote, under the pains and penalties of perjury, end quote, in which the taxpayer agrees to the following: not to charge penalties and interest on late rent, evict a tenant because of non-payment before all property taxes are paid up to date, to inform tenants in writing of the new status and their inability to charge penalties or interest, as well as evict tenants because of non-payments. 3, to be listed on a publicly available database so that tenants can view which properties have received property tax relief And 4, to acknowledge that the city will post this information on the city website. As well, just as this council seeks to ease the financial burden on taxpayers during this difficult time, in addition to the requirement that property owners seeking relief must extend the same to their tenants, this council is united in strongly urging all landlords to do their utmost to accommodate their tenants through permitted delayed payment of rent, forgiving late fees, and other forms of adjustments on their lease terms. These, as we know, are hard times for many of us. Hard times require a united front, people all working together to help one another, government working together to help those most in need. And there are so many among us that are in need. In closing, I just wanted to add that I'm very grateful to those who agreed to co-sponsor this resolution with me. The councilors Carpenter, Pine, Shannon, Hightower, Hanson, Mason, Polino, Stromberg, and President Tracey, my deepest appreciation. To councilors Pine, Hanson, Hightower, and President Tracey, who offered edits and amendments that are incorporated into this resolution, you together have made this a better resolution, and I thank you. To the administration, to our city attorney who has read so many drafts that I have lost track of how many there were on this resolution up until late this afternoon, thank you. I hope this resolution will receive our unanimous support, signaling to our community and to our neighbors that we are here to provide leadership, guidance, and all the assistance that we can possibly give. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Councilor Paul. Are there any councilors who would like to speak? Councilor Hanson, go right ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to really thank Councilor Paul for all the very hard work on this and working to include everyone's voices who chimed in. And I was really happy to be able to work with some other councilors to strengthen the component of, requiring any landlords who benefit from this to pass that along and to make sure that that information is reaching the tenants and that they're able to take advantage of that. And with having it posted on the city website, we can all play a role as well in getting that information out to tenants who would benefit from their landlord taking advantage of this. I still feel that there's a lot more that we need to do for renters during this time, and I hope we all feel that, and I hope we'll all work really hard every day to try to brainstorm ways. I know that our legal authority on this is limited, but I think we can continue to be creative and working with the city team at the Resource and Recovery Center to try to identify as many possible ways as we can to support renters who are really struggling right now. But I really do appreciate that we're taking this step here. I think this is a great step in the right direction. And thank you to everyone who collaborated on this.
Thank you, Councilor Hanson. I had Councilor Paulino in the queue next. And if other councilors, you can just give a wave if you're interested. Okay, I see a couple others now. Thank you for that. Got you now. Councilor Paulino, go ahead.
I didn't mean to get in the queue, but I'm happy to say that, I agree with what Councilor Paul said, that I think we're all deeply committed to making this a long-term plan of how we get out of this, but we want to do it responsibly. So this is step one of many steps, and I think we can all work together to really put Burlingtonians first. So thank you. I guess I did want to speak.
Thank you, Councilor Paulino. I saw Councilor Jing next, to be followed by Councilor Pine.
Thank you, President Tracey. And it will take us some time to get used to it. But what I wanted to say is basically about this resolution. I don't know if I'm 100% with many of you here. But my questions, I have a couple of questions. Maybe getting some answers will allow me to see if we will vote for it or no. And I think the first question is the city did have a debt policy of about 100 something Yeah, $1 million. And it seems there is only 15 million left in order for the city to keep on borrowing. We understand we are in very hard times right now, everyone. And personally, what I'm thinking about is not the COVID right now, but after COVID-19, what will be the life of taxpayers will look like, knowing that we have already borrowed from our future selves already. So much borrowing going on. But my question, the first one is, do we actually know approximately how much we will be losing in terms of late tax payment? Do we have any idea? Is it 30 million? Do we, for those who wrote this resolution, do they did any research in that specific? I think that's my first question, President Tracey.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jang. I would look to CAO Shad to answer that question. CAO Shad, are you able to answer that question?
Sorry, I'm just unmuting myself. Was the question specifically about the payments themselves or about the additional late fees that we would not be receiving?
Yeah, so it's not the late fees, but it is, but it is the late tax payment. Do we have an approximative number, amount?
So I think that's the difficult thing. We know that the city is supposed to receive $9 million and we are supposed to receive 18.8 is what is to go to the education fund. How much of that will be paid is what we don't know.
Yep. And
we don't know how many taxpayers will be able to afford that, I guess, is the question.
Councillor Jang, you still have the floor.
Yes, thank you. So now I think the next question is, you know, it seems we will be borrowing at $20 million and only 18.8 will go to the school district and 9 million will come.
Councillor Mason.
Point of order. This is what Councillor Jang is speaking to is not the resolution on the floor. The resolution on the floor is waiving penalties and interest.
That I'll rule that point of order in order. Councillor Jang, you can please speak to that particular issue on the next resolutions that come forward.
The resolution on the resolution did come with a memo, and if it's not on the resolution, I am speaking also with the memo that came with the resolution, Councillor Mason. So do I still have the floor to continue with my question, President Tracey?
Yes, please try and center your comments and questions specific to this resolution.
Yeah, and it is related. That what I'm asking is basically where this $20 million that we'll be borrowing come from. Even though if it's not on the resolution, it is on the memo that come with the resolution. Yeah, why not less? And why $20 million? And especially we don't know how much late tax payment we will be not receiving. We don't have any idea. And I just need some clarity.
Mayor Weinberger.
Yes. Yep.
Sorry, Mayor, did you want to go first or did you want me to go first?
I believe I'll recognize Mayor Weinberger first, and then I'll.
Audio issue here. We got two computers going. Apologies. So Councillor Jang's question is a fair question, and I think what CAO Shad was trying to articulate is there's considerable uncertainty about how many taxpayers see a benefit and want to pursue this program as it's laid out. $20 million is a figure that would mean that basically more than 2/3 of the property taxes could not come in, and this
instrument would be sufficient to cover it. If even more than that took advantage of this program, qualified for this program, we would seek an expansion of it, and that would be something that we could accommodate. But we sized it at 20 million because we think that is unlikely. Let's keep in mind what this instrument is. It's a tax anticipation note. It is borrowing against future tax dollars. It is borrowing against these very tax dollars that we are saying we are okay with them coming in a couple of months late. We have a very, very high, this is not some sort of speculative borrowing. We have a very high degree of confidence that this money will eventually come in. It's possible that there could be, some of it could be delayed. And in fact, as Councilor suggested, we may even between, over the next month or so, seek to find a way to explicitly allow some of it to be delayed beyond August. So I do caution councilors that that is not what we're announcing tonight. And I think that takes considerable more thought to know how that will be structured. The vote tonight is simply to allow the vote from June until August to happen without penalty and interest. That could mean that a good chunk, we are assuming that will mean millions of dollars do not come in by the deadline. We do believe basically, essentially all of that money will eventually come in. So the only real cost to the city is the interest cost, which has been estimated by the CAO to be approximately $46,000 for these 2 months because of how inexpensive it is to borrow at this point. I hope that addresses the question.
CAO Shad. CAO Shad, it looks like you're on mute.
Thank you so much, President. One other point of clarification. One of the reasons that we chose this tax anticipation note is that it is a drawdown facility. So we are planning that we would have access to that $20 million, but we would not take all $20 million if that was not needed to close this gap. So we would pay a very small amount of interest to have access to that money. But if it turned out what we were missing, come June 13th was only $10 million, we would only draw down the $10 million. So I hope that helps clarify.
Councilor Jing, you still have the floor.
Yes, thank you. And I thank you for that last clarification. I think it makes more sense. So basically, it seems you're saying, yes, we have the ability to borrow 20, but we might not even access those 20, right? And now I think the next question would be, what if it is even more? If we are not receiving taxes that are up to $30 million, then there will be a gap of 10 million. Where will that coming from? Because what I'm thinking about is not right now, but it is how all of this will mean to a taxpayer of Burlington, and also knowing we had a debt policy, $15 million left, and now we're borrowing 20, and I understand that it's a different scenario here. But for now, I leave it to that. Thank you very much, Councilor. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, did you have anything else to offer, CAO Shad?
I will just offer one more point, which is the administration is very much looking for the long term as well. That's the reason we're starting with this short. There are other instruments to consider in line with our debt policy for the medium and longer term. So unfortunately, we probably will need to consider those. And we can certainly talk about those outside of this meeting if you'd like, Councilor Jing.
I would love that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Jing and CAO Shad for those clarifications, as well as to Mayor Weinberger. Next up is Councilor Pine.
Thank you, Mr. President. The comments I wanted to make are first to thank Councilor Paul and the mayor and his staff for bringing this forward and for being collaborative in how we amended it and revised it to end up with the final product that we did. I do just want to highlight for the council and for the public that if you take an average taxpayer in Burlington who takes advantage of this relief in June, and this is simply to point out the reality. So I just want everybody to go into this with their eyes wide open, and they take advantage of this relief. Their payment on August 12th is twice what it would have been under normal circumstances. So they are getting relief for 2 months, but come August 12th, the way we've structured this, they now owe basically 2 quarters, 2 payments in 1 payment. And so I just want us to be really mindful of the fact that there will be people for whom that's a real serious hardship. And we are going to work diligently to try and address that. I also want to just mention that when you think of the obligations of a homeowner, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is what we say in the business. Principal and interest is the biggest chunk, unless you've fortunately paid off your mortgage. The biggest piece is actually your lender. And so we need to actually engage our lenders. We used to have a thing called the Community Banking Council, which really worked with local lenders. And local lenders need to be part of this discussion. So they work with their borrowers to give them as much forbearance as needed, so we don't get into a situation where people are essentially going into delinquency, followed by then foreclosure and all the ripple effects of that. And so it's in our resolution. It's something I really feel strongly about, that the lending community, and Councilor Carpenter knows that community better than just about anybody, really needs to step up to the table and really needs to be part of solving this issue for this community and across the country. And now that lending, of course, is national and beyond our borders, we don't have that much influence. But on local lenders, hopefully they'll listen and really take to heart the need to work with everybody so that people don't end up losing their homes as a result of this crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Pine. Any other councilors would like to speak? Councilor Freeman.
Thank you, President Tracey. Thank you to Councilor Paul and others who worked on this resolution, to the administration. I know this was a weekend that I worked, so I did not get to probably engage quite as much in the back and forth. And I know a lot of people worked really closely on the language and creating amendments and or sort of additions to it. And I appreciate all the work that went into that. What I had said, and I think to folks, and I think this was sort of echoed in what Councilor Hansen said in his initial comment, is that I am, of course, I think it's important that we provide relief to property owners via taxes. I think that obviously it's within our charter. It's, as people have already mentioned, other councilors have already mentioned, it's within our jurisdiction. So it's sort of an obvious go-to in terms of providing economic relief. I think that we did a pretty good job at trying to understand who would be potentially impacted by the current crisis that we're in, and try to put that into the resolution specifically. I think there was language that was put in around if someone is a property owner who is also a landlord, that we made it so that we want their tenants to also see that relief as well. But I think, as Councilor Hansen said, I just in general want to figure out a way for the city to be more proactive in terms of what we can do for renters right now. We know that 60% of the city are renters. It's likely that not a lot of them are property owners if they're renters. I don't have a statistic on that, but I would say probably a majority of folks in the city are renters. It's a really, really rough and hard time to be a renter right now, to be low income. I think that this is a really good start, but I don't want us to signal that we're not centering, that this is somehow moving away from centering renters or people who don't own property, or workers who are unemployed, or folks who are just generally low income, about the economic hardships that they're experiencing right now, how sort of terrifying it can be to have your housing be up in the air, and to have a lot of questions around that. We know that housing is healthcare. It's it's just an essential need. And so I am looking forward to working with you all and with the city to sort of navigate that going forward, whether it's doing more advocacy with the state, who has, where, you know, this is directly under their jurisdiction, or figuring out if we can collaborate with CEDO or other sort of local institutions to navigate that. So I will be supporting the resolution. I appreciate all the work that's gone on. I do hear that counselors in the administration are interested in the myriad of people who are being impacted by this crisis. So I'm excited to, or looking forward and sort of anticipating how to work through that going forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Freeman. Are there any other councilors who'd like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we will go to a vote. All those in favor? Oh, wait, sorry. Mr. Mayor, go right ahead.
Thank you, President Tracey. And thank you for all the counselors who worked hard to make this resolution as strong as possible and did so with short notice. We aspire to get back to a typical schedule where we are not in this sort of emergency posture and documents are able to get out to earlier. So I appreciate that everyone worked hard to on this, even with them not coming until this weekend. I do just want to make sure the public watching this is not left with the notion that the city is not being proactive about its attempts to support renters. I think I want to make sure the counselors are all clear on everything the city has done since the start of this crisis to support renters. First of all, we in the first days of the emergency, that day I think I did declare the emergency, announced that we had voluntarily, working with nonprofit housing providers, secured commitments to, in all but extreme cases that were about behavioral issues, for nonprofit housing providers not to seek evictions. We asked that day, while acknowledging that we don't have that authority the way some cities do. We don't have a direct role in the process of evictions the way some cities do. We called on all property owners to cease evictions during this emergency. We also sent letters to the court asking them to, because the courts do oversee the eviction process because of this health emergency, to stop. The courts listened to us. Judge Helen Torr announced that she recognized these were unprecedented times and that we can't have people evicted from their homes amidst an emergency where there is a stay-home order. She basically made the exact argument in her ruling that the city had made. I also testified in Montpelier at the Senate Housing Committee about a desire for them to make that ruling a statewide ruling and to make it more permanent. This is a very complicated issue when you get farther into it, exactly how this unfolds. There is a whole mix of rent payments and payments to banks. Like Councilor Pine notes, there is a significant debt issue here that needs to be worked out. And it is true that not all these issues have been sorted out yet. What we have done proactively is set up the RRC, the Resource and Recovery Center, to work person to person, one-on-one if necessary, to make sure that any tenant in this community who needs help gets all the help that they can get under the law and through the massive financial relief efforts that are coming from the federal government and the state government. The city can do a little bit around the edges with its own finances, and we're trying to do that with this action you're about to take. But let's make no mistake, the main relief is coming from other levels of government. And we have set up proactively, I don't know if anyone else in the state has done it, I haven't heard of another city doing this, set up an entity to work hand in hand with any renters. And I put out the call again and again. I say it to all of the counselors here. If you are aware of individuals who are facing pressures, who are worried about immediate eviction or don't know how they're going to get through the coming months, who need help working with their landlords and coming up with a plan forward. We want to hear from those constituents. We hope you will encourage them to get essentially casework assistance from the RRC. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Mayor Weinberger. Are there any other councilors like to speak? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. That brings us to item 7, which contains 2 different resolutions regarding tax anticipation notes. I will go to Councillor Paul, and I'll leave it to you, Councillor Paul, whether you want to move them individually or as a slate.
Thank you, President Tracey. I would, if in the interest of time, certainly, and given that they're basically identical except for a date change, move items 7.01 and 7.02, waive the reading, ask for a second, and briefly for the floor back.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councillor Pine. Councillor Paul, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. So this is essentially, these are just simply 2 very straightforward resolutions. They're authorizing the mayor and authorized officers to pledge the credit of the city in anticipation of tax revenues. The first one is during the fiscal year ending June 30, 2020, and the other is ending June 30, 2021. The reason for that is that we are going over a fiscal, we're starting in June of this year, and we are ending for this anticipation note in August of this year. However, our fiscal year ends June 30th. So that's the reason for the 2 resolutions. And the CAO has also stated that the amount is an outstanding a not to exceed $20 million. Obviously, if we don't need $20 million, we will not borrow that, even though the interest rate is very low due to a lot of factors, the fact also that it's a very short-term debt instrument, it still is money. And so we will only borrow what we need. Those are the 2 resolutions before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will go to a vote. All those in favor of items 7.01 and 7.02, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I oppose.
Councillor Jang is opposed, so that means that we have to go to a roll call vote per open meeting law. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Councillor Paul,
Yes.
Councillor Mason,
Yes.
Councillor Shannon,
Yes.
Councillor Jang,
No.
Councillor Pine,
Yes.
Councillor Hanson,
Yes.
Councillor Polino,
Yes.
Councillor Freeman,
Yes.
Councillor Stromberg,
Yes.
Councillor Carpenter,
Yes.
Councillor Hightower,
Yes.
Council President Tracey.
Yes.
11 ayes, 1 nay.
Both resolutions have passed. That brings us to our final item, which is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Move.
Who moved that? I'm sorry.
Jang.
Councillor Jang, go ahead.
I'm so moved.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councillor Freeman. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Yes, everyone.
Yes. And good night.
Looking forward to meeting in person again.
Yes.